Hello, welcome to the Game Informer Show, a weekly podcast covering the video game industry. Join us every Thursday for a discussion about the latest gaming news, reviews, and exclusive reveals alongside Game Informer staff and special guests from around the industry. I'm hosting today. I am Kyle Hilliard. Alex and Marcus, who usually host and co-host, or vice versa or whatever, they're out on assignment. They're out doing fancy things that you'll learn about later. Sorry to be a tease.
And for once, I'm not.
I know, but you'll be going out very soon.
Yes.
That voice was Brian Shays. What's up, Brian?
Hey, I am just, flying high off of that Nintendo Direct that happened earlier this week. And also, pretty big DLC release this week that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, I feel good about that Nintendo stuff as well, which we will talk about. But before we do that, let's introduce Charles Hart. What's up, Charles?
What's poppin'? I never know what people are supposed to answer to that question. I always say it because it's like a fun way of me being like, hello. But like, maybe everyone's supposed to be like, the popcorn.
Charles Hart. Charles the Popcorn Hart.
Charles Poppin' Hart. Yeah.
I don't think we're going to commit to that, but maybe for one episode. Remember when Ben on the MinMax show recently just called you Chuck inexplicably? And it was just so weird, and I didn't like it in my ears. I was just listening as a fan.
It wasn't even as like an introduction. He was like, "Oh, by the way, Chuck." Like I really like soft launching a new nickname mid conversation, just with no intro, just like being like, "Yeah, by the way, Chuck, whatever." And I was like, "Whoa, okay."
Well, to be fair, your social media handle is ChuckDuck365.
This is true. I as a like fourth grader was like, I should go by Chuck. That seems like a cool thing to do. But my mom has always been very insistent. She's like, I named you Charles. I didn't name you Chuck. I didn't name you Charlie. I didn't name you Chaz. Your name is Charles.
I one time asked Joe Juba, like, if he ever went by anything other than Joe when he was like younger, because Joe seems like very much like an adult name. And I was like, I can't picture him as like a Joey Juba, So he did go by Joseph as a child, which a little bit more acceptable as a child. But who knows? Maybe Joe is a booming name in the childhood circles these days. I don't know.
Yeah, I always wanted nicknames when I was a kid, but like Kyle is so succinct and isn't really short or long for anything else, so it was always Kyle. But then when I came to Game Informer, you would have to go listen to like old episodes of Replay, but Reiner was just calling me Kyle Strife. I don't remember why that came up. Just Kyle Strife. Like it was a Final Fantasy VII reference, a game that wasn't like a super fan of or anything. Like I don't remember. So that was my first nickname. Was Reiner calling?
Was it because you had big hair?
I genuinely no idea. If anyone knows or like remembers what episode of Replay that came up on, I would love for it to be sent to me.
Did you ever like interrogate it in the moment, or were you just like, this is me now, or this is me to this person?
I think I did. It was literally like my first or second episode of Replay, so I was still like nervous and trying to figure out what was happening.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I was ready to be like, what are you talking about, as much as, well, my boss is calling me Kyle Strife and that's just my life now.
The one cool thing about my name, nickname wise, is if you say Charles Hart really fast over and over again, it sounds like you're saying Charizard.
That is objectively the coolest nickname you could have.
There we go. Yeah. Let's get to the show. Enough with the nicknames, Charizard and Bishay. Let's just move on. Trying out some nicknames. Let's see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to be fair, that was my nickname in high school and college.
Really?
Yes.
Was that? Were there other Bryans or something?
People just started calling me that.
Bishay. Okay. Yeah. I technically came up with it just now, and I don't like it.
I was just saying, you came up with it and immediately decided against it. That's great.
So yeah, this week has been cool. It felt like we were getting away from Summer Game Fest and everything related to Summer Game Fest, and then Nintendo was like, by the way, in less than 24 hours, we're going to have a bunch of announcements. See you tomorrow. And that's like, which is like how they do it. And so we are going to talk about Nintendo stuff. But I actually want to lead the show with Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, which is out on Friday. If you're listening to this on the day it comes out, June 21st. It comes out on all available platforms that the game is on. PC, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, You do need the base game. It's not standalone. And I have been playing it. I have not beaten it. I would estimate that I am probably in the 40% zone, maybe coming up on half, something like that. Marcus Stewart reviewed the game for Game Informer, and he quite liked it. I actually have not read his review. I was off the day that he was looking for edits on that, but I saw that he gave it a 9.75, so it seems like Marcus is quite happy with it.
Decent score. By the way, before we go further, it is on PS4 and Xbox One as well.
Oh, thank you. Yes. All right. Yeah. I'm playing on PS5. I don't know where Marcus played it. He probably played it on PS5 as well. But, yeah, so...
I believe he did.
Where are you guys with Elden Ring? Are you... Like, I forget where you're at. Brian, I know you're, like, hit or mostly miss on From in general, right?
Yeah, so I played probably, 10... 15 hours maybe of Elden Ring when it first came out, and I was really digging it, and then I kind of just fell off. I was like, you know what, I need a game that like allows me to progress a little bit more steadily, because I was trying to be like efficient with my gaming time, because, you know, when we're in this job we have to play as much stuff as possible, and I was like, all right, well, Elden Ring has enough advocates. I can move on from this and like check out other games that we might want to talk about in other capacities, whether it's on a podcast, whether that's writing features about it, or talking about it at the end of the year. I was like, all right, enough people are on staff that can talk about Elden Ring. I'm going to move on to something else. I'll come back eventually. I never really did. So when this came out, I, you know, before review codes came in, I was actually out at Summer Game Fest, and I got to sit down with Hidetaka Miyazaki and have a really good in-depth conversation with him, not only about Erdtree, but also like, you know, why Bloodborne is so special to him, why how Sekiro and Bloodborne kind of helped lead to Elden Ring. Just go check out that interview on GameInformer.com if you are interested in that. And then, like, you know, seeing all the hype and buzz around it made me really want to dive back into Elden Ring. So I started a new save file, and I want to say like 8 hours in now, and I'm already further in the story than I was in my first attempt. Because my first attempt, I just kind of wandered aimlessly, and I did like some of like the like optional boss fights and everything in the God, what are they called? Like where you go down
like the
underground
caverns. I forget what they're called.
The catacombs.
Catacombs, yes.
Yeah.
So I did a few of those, and I was really proud of like the ones that I took down, especially being fairly low level. But I never really progressed like with like story bosses.
Yeah.
Like I got to Margit, and he just wrecked me, and I was like, all right, well, I think that's enough Elden Ring. And this time I'm like, you know, well past Margit at this point. Good. So I am making steady progress, but I'm only like level 22, 23, something like that. So I mean, I'm still pretty early on.
If you're past Margit, like that's a good like. I don't know if you'll keep playing a lot. You know, you have professional obligations and stuff like that. You might fall off again, but like once you get past that first boss, that's like the first big skill check. That's like if you're past this, like you're kind of in. You kind of know what to expect, and you kind of know what kind of hurdles that you will surprise yourself being capable of overcoming.
Which is funny because people said that same thing about Father Gascoigne in Bloodborne, and that was the exact final thing that I did in Bloodborne. Was I beat Father Gascoigne on my second attempt, I think. It wasn't even like I was stuck on him, but like
brag. Holy cow.
Dan Tack kept going, oh, once you get past him, like that's when you know like you're in. And I beat that, and I played for maybe like 10 or 15 more minutes, and I was like, oh, I'm done. But I really like Bloodborne, like I really enjoyed it. I think that like the games kind of have like a shelf life for me, even though I very much enjoy like the segments that I play. I mean, Dark Souls and Demon Souls have never really stuck with me, and Sekiro I kind of bounced off immediately, but like Bloodborne, I was loving that game for as long as I played it, and then I just got to a point where I was like, oh, I think I've seen enough. And Elden Ring was kind of that way for me in 2022, but now I feel like I'm a little bit more compelled to keep going with it this time around.
I mean, it is a series. I like weirdly got on board during Dark Souls 2, and it was because I was like, I'm gonna commit to this. I'm not a person who uses guides ever, but for Dark Souls 2, I was like, let me crack open a guide and follow this a little bit. And I think that really helped me sort of understand what to get from those games. And I still struggle with them tremendously, and I don't if you bounce off a From Software game, like I totally get it. It's not like the kind of game that I'm going to sit there and try to convince you that you should like it, you know. But it is like you gotta be ready to go all in. Like it's time for one of these, you know. And Elden Ring is like the best of all of them. I think in my opinion, as much as I love Sekiro, but yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to go into it with like more of like, okay, well, if I fail in this, I can just go explore elsewhere and like, you know, grind for like runes and everything to like level up my character and find other stuff. And like there's so much that you can do outside of the main storyline. Like I said, I barely did the main storyline my first attempt at playing. So now I'm kind of going into it with the mindset of like, okay, I can do like follow loosely along the main storyline. But if I get stuck somewhere, I can just go out and like just traverse the world and like make my own challenges. Like, oh, I want to clear this camp of enemies, or you know, I want to go see what's on this corner of the map. And then there's almost always, it has that kind of Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom quality of like, I don't know what's going to be on the other side of that mountain or that cliff or whatever, but it's probably something cool.
And it will kill me, is the other
And it
thing.
will almost certainly kill me.
No, not almost certainly. It will kill you.
I mean, and honestly, that was what, that was something that Hidetaka Miyazaki said to me about, like, you know, one of the core concepts of these Souls-like games, is, you know, death is a part of the process. It's not just like, oh, you failed, sorry, go try again. It's like, no, like you learn something every single time you die, and that is what you carry into it. And like, you know, that's why they put the runes there, or the stuff that you drop right where you died, so you have to go back and try to confront that challenge again.
Yeah, it's like, hey, turns out, look, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but pretty well designed series of games.
And also I learned that Miyazaki is still heavily involved in like creating the level design for all of their titles. Like he almost had like that Sakurai level of like, you know, I probably could like delegate this to somebody else, but I really want to make sure we get this right, like personally.
Yeah. Well, Brian,
So,
I genuinely hope that you kind of, it pulls you in and you see it to the end and even play the DLC, because like it really is like one of my favorite gaming experiences ever, period. I mean, truly, if I really think about it, Elden Ring. I mean, it's up there. You know, I had a friend who was like complaining that like this generation has underwhelmed him, just overall. And I was like, maybe, but like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and Elden Ring are like some of my favorite games ever, period. And they're like all this generation, you know. Charles, where are you? I don't know where you are on the Elden Ring train, I guess.
Elden Ring, it's a weird instance of a game. It came out like right before I joined Games Media, because I started in May of 22. It came out in like February, I think. But I was playing it like on and off all throughout 2022. I stopped at about 40 hours in, and the only reason I stopped is because I just kept getting kind of annoyed, because I would just be ready to commit and just like go through the main storyline, and then I get to a spot and it's like, sorry, you actually can't get through here because of the thing, and I like wouldn't know what was going on. I'd look it up and I have to go to like a random castle, and I just booted it up just now and I was like, oh, I guess I needed a medallion to get this, and I guess I got it, and so I just got into like the Atlas Plateau, I think it's called, like a whole new like area of a map you need to go up an elevator to do. So I beat Radon, I think was the most recent one I did. I beat Lunala. I beat like I think 3 of the starting major bosses.
Okay.
And I like these style of games a lot, but I will always play like 40 hours of them, and then for whatever reason be like, that's as much as I can stomach. I really love this game. I really love Lies of P. I really love Sekiro. I have never beat any of them. I've come up to like a really hard boss, and then I beat that boss, and then I think the feeling of overcoming such an intense challenge in my brain is I'm just like, okay, like I may as well have beat the game right now. I can go on and do something else.
Man.
But yeah, so I was surprised. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I know a lot like FromSoft DLC is often like post-game content. I was surprised this one you don't have to beat the game to start it, but you do have to get like a lot of the way. Like I played for 40 hours and I think I'm like level 60 something, And I looked up and they were like, yeah, if you want to beat Moog, who's like the boss,
Yeah.
one of the bosses you need to beat it, you should be like level 100. That was just like a random guide that I saw. So I'm not really even close to getting where it is, and I'm super far in. So I'm just interested in what I don't really understand what the area is. I like read Marcus's preview, I think, so I understand like what you do there, but like I don't understand the conceit of the DLC.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's get into it. I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm actually just generally the way I play the game is I'm not super invested in the lore and the story of the world. So like I couldn't even really spoil a lot of things if I wanted to. But yeah, you don't need to beat the game. My understanding is you need to beat Radon and then Moog, which I thought it was Mog, but it's actually Moog. Jacob Keller told me just like an hour ago. And yeah, he's like he's like an optional boss in the main game. But once you defeat, I actually, it was funny. I booted up my game and I'm like 160 hours or something like that. I'm like level 180. I beat the game and then I new game plussed it and like beat the game again. Which sounds like a lot, but like because that game is so open ended, new game plus is actually a sprint. Like if you knew what bosses to hit, you can just bam, 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 knock out those bosses. Which is really
is
fun.
it easier that time through because like do you retain your levels or your gear or anything?
Yeah, you retain everything. So like it was funny because like there were a lot of bosses that I was stuck on for like days at a time. That in that new game plus run, I just like did them in one try and like barely drank a single health item, and it was very satisfying. But so I'm actually in, and then what I had to do was actually had to go beat Moog before I got the DLC, which actually worked really well because in my new game plus game I hadn't beat him, so that let me get my feet under me. It was funny because like I was like so lost when I booted the game back up despite spending so much time on it that on my compass on the top of the screen I saw a symbol and I was like, oh, I must have put something interesting there. That, hey, here's a little task for me to do to retrain myself on Elden Ring. And what I had been doing was just following the south direction on the compass. I thought the S was like an item or something. It was very embarrassing.
I did that as well. Like I was like, because like it's like a stylized S, right?
I have no excuse.
It almost looks like a lightning bolt, and I was
does.
like, oh, something over here must be cool, and it's like, oh no, I'm just going south.
Yeah. So, but what happens is the arena where you fought Moog, which is like advice here, like go fight Moog now. The DLC comes out on June 21st. Like take care of Moog now, because what'll happen is once you install the DLC, there'll be a character in that arena that'll tell you to like, yeah, touch this egg thing, and then you touch it, and then what happens is you actually get fully transported to a whole different section entirely. Like it's not in the sense of like, oh, we're putting you at the most northern point of the map or we made a new island. Like it is a totally separate map that you select differently. And I really like that approach because it basically creates this like mini Elden Ring like off to the side that you kind of feel like you're starting in the same way you started the last one. Like it's super fun to just be dropped into this place and be like, oh my god, what is that thing in the distance? Like I got to experience that all over again, but on a smaller scale. So like I'm really enjoying it. Like I don't want to get into specifics because I don't want to spoil things. I don't want to describe bosses or locations, but it's like a boring take, but it's more Elden Ring, and it's like great. It's like a shrunken Elden Ring off to the side, so you get to have like the emotions that you had when you first started playing Elden Ring, but in a completely different place on like a smaller scale. Like it's not going to be as big as the main game. And I'm also grateful that it's not, it's so far at least, and like I said, maybe about halfway, I've done like 3 main bosses and like 2 side bosses. I haven't hit anything that felt impossible. Like it doesn't seem significantly harder than the main game, which is good. Like maybe it's not good for you. Maybe you wanted like an extreme final challenge for Elden Ring, but that's not really what I like about Elden Ring. So I am very over leveled. I'm like level 190, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
And I've been hitting a level of challenge that I like. Where like last night I probably tried the boss I was on 8 times, and it was like, and that's good. Like that's as long as I'm not like trying it 1,000 times, and as long as I'm not trying it once, that's kind of where I like to be with From games.
Yeah, I don't know what level Marcus was at when he reviewed it, But I do know that, again, spoiler free, he did say that some of the later challenges are extremely difficult.
Okay, well, that's a little intimidating, but I mean, I'm in, man. I can't imagine a world where I don't see it to the end, unless I really hit. Because like if I hit something that's really brutally destroying me, I will go. There's a couple places where you can go level up very quickly that I took full advantage of when I was playing the main game that I will revisit.
Kyle, let me ask you a question framed through a shared franchise that we adore.
Yes.
Eiji Aonuma. You know him, you love him.
Franchise, Eiji Aonuma.
He is the series producer of the Legend of Zelda franchise. He has very fine, with much finality, said that like we're not doing anything else with like this version of Hyrule, right?
Right.
We're not doing any DLC for Tears of the Kingdom or anything like that. What if they did like a Shadow of the Erdtree style DLC for Tears of the Kingdom? We'll call it Shadow of the Deku Tree, and they transported you to other areas, but they kind of satisfy that curiosity that people have had of like, oh, what if like other games were made in this style? So Link has to go back in time, which is a core conceit of the Tears of the Kingdom game and the story, to other versions of Hyrule, whether that be like, oh, you're playing in like the A Link to the Past Hyrule, or you're playing in the Ocarina of Time Hyrule, and it's not like a full story of like you're not playing through the entire like Ocarina of Time story, but you're visiting there and like you're doing like story driven quests. Like, would you be satisfied with that?
Yeah, you had me at Zelda DLC, Brian. Like that was like so
easiest
much
person to
more.
pitch to.
But yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah,
like when you mentioned like how, because like, you know, there's so many similarities between like that you can draw between Breath of the Wild and Elden Ring in terms of like evolving these series, or in From Software's case like the subgenre in different ways, that it kind of made me think like, oh, well, like what if like, you know, they were done with this version of Hyrule, but what if like Link had to go to like, you know, where one of like the optional quest, so again trying to steer clear of spoilers, the big optional mainline quest that happens in Tears of the Kingdom, and like you go to a spot that once you complete that, you can touch this item and it teleports you back to, you know, other eras of Hyrule, and you're like able to explore those in like the Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild style of gameplay.
That sounds amazing. Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
just spitballing here, okay? Like I don't know anything about the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC.
Elden Ring. But I mean,
because I don't know anything about Elden Ring DLC. I'm just saying that right now. I haven't played it yet.
If they just to sort of loop back around, if they took an Erdtree approach to Tears of the Kingdom, right? And they were like, we're gonna make it would basically be the equivalent of like, it wouldn't have to call back to anything, but it's like, we're going to make a new section that's about a quarter of the size of Hyrule and Breath of the Wild for you to explore. That'd be really cool, but I will say that would be sort of against one of the things that makes those games so wonderful, is that like it is all one big connected thing, right? Like Elden Ring has a little bit, there's a couple places you can go that are disconnected. There's an underground area in Elden Ring that it technically exists as a separate map, right? And you can get there without going through a loading screen, but it feels different than like Tears of the Kingdom's underground area, where you just fall in there and you can go in there from a bunch of different places and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, if they wanted to take an Erdtree approach to Tears of the Kingdom content, like, yeah, absolutely. Like, just make a little mini like area that I can go explore and get excited about. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And that's what I feel like I'm getting out of Erdtree, is like a mini Elden Ring with new stuff that's exciting to see.
Sure.
Yeah. I have a Erdtree question.
An Erdtree question?
Do you think it's easier because you're in your New Game Plus run, or do you think that the ease of your New Game Plus has a lot to do with you like knowing what to expect?
I've actually heard often that when you are in New Game Plus, you do go into it overpowered, like in From games in general. You are overpowered, but the game is harder. It's basically like playing the game on a higher difficulty with a stronger character.
Right.
I don't have the sense that what I'm playing here is like a harder version. I don't have a point of comparison for what Erdtree is on a non-New Game Plus save. I got rid of that save. I have one save for Elden Ring, which is just my New Game Plus save. So I don't know. Supposedly it is harder, but I think I'm just way over leveled in a way that I'm like happy to be. I want to be over leveled to take on these challenges. Like I'm at a point now where most of the enemies I encounter, I can kill them in like 3 to 4 hits. And the most challenging sections of any From game are where you go someplace new and you're underpowered, and every encounter it feels like a boss fight. You know?
Yeah.
I haven't hit that. I haven't hit any overpowered enemy that I'm like that I absolutely dread because I know this is going to be like a 5-minute fight. You know?
What like build do you use when you play?
It's a good question that I don't fully know the answer to, embarrassingly, but I basically, and I was talking about this to Marcus and he was making fun of me, but I basically found a weapon I liked in the first 5 minutes of the game and have never unequipped it. I have just just thrown all my upgrade material into that one weapon. It's like plus 25. And it's two like swords, and then I just use I don't like using shields. I like rolling. I like being nimble, and my big move is I sprint right up to you and I just hit you like 3 or 4 times with my swords. You know?
Wow, that's a completely different experience than I'm having, where I'm trying to use like the shield and then I block the attack and then I land a heavy parry on them, and yeah.
No, I run in, hit you, run out. I have one attack that I found, like a magic attack on the left trigger, where I shoot like a tornado at you and I can stay like 15 or 20 feet away from you and I'll just use up all my magic on that one attack because it has a lot of pushback as well. But I'm very much like just the play style I am. I don't like shields. And Marcus was even telling me, he was like, you should try different weapons. Like you can pick up a weapon that is like the one you have that's like stronger against dragons. You know what I mean? Like it will just do more damage to that creature. And I was just like, well, Marcus, but then I gotta go to the table and I gotta talk to the smith and I gotta give him a bunch of stones to get that thing leveled up to like where my standby weapons are all the time, and I gotta go into menus and I gotta read statistics. Oh, it's so stupid. I'm very lazy. I'm weirdly lazy when it comes to these games.
No, I get it. I'm a full magic person. I was surprised you guys were both full melee. I always heard magic was easier, and I was like, why make it any harder for myself?
Yeah.
But I think the thing I don't know, saying anything about Elden Ring feels so dumb because it's is one of the biggest games in years, so I feel like everything about it's already been said. But I enjoy that it's difficult, but it's very flexible. The fact that you picked up one weapon, Kyle, and you were still using it like 100 whatever hours later. And that's okay. That I'm like, oh, okay. I guess it matters less that I'm I don't know, smart or specific about what I'm doing, and more just that I'm persistent or just make any decision.
I mean that's one of the joys of that game is its flexibility. But I'm the type of player that gets bogged down in flexibility. I actually don't like a lot of choices in general when it comes to that kind of thing. But I recognize that I'm a bit of a weirdo in that regard.
So are you not like a fan of like deck builders or anything like that?
Not at all.
Okay, so you never got into like Marvel Snap or any of those phenomenons?
Nope. I could not be less interested in that style of game, especially when it's free to play.
I don't know if you know this, Kyle. I broke my glasses the night before I had to fly out for Summer Game Fest.
Oh no.
I like literally snapped on the bridge. I was like cleaning them and they were in half. I had like really old glasses, but I brought the broken pair with me. I landed at LAX, immediately Ubered to like the first glasses repair place, and it was like 2 minutes after they opened. I put my 2 pieces of glasses on the counter, and the guy was like, yeah, I can't fix this. And I was oh no. And he was like, but I can just put the lenses into new frames. And I was like, oh, okay. And in my head, I was like, I didn't realize you could do that. I, for some reason, thought like lenses were specific to frames. But because my lenses were already a certain shape, he was like, oh, here's like the 5 I have that fit this.
Okay.
And I was like, this is perfect. 5 choices. If you ever go to pick out glasses, it's like, here's a wall of like 90 glasses. No pressure. This is going to be your like visual identity for the next several years of your life.
So
I picked the glasses I'm wearing now out of like 4, and I was like, perfect. That's all I wanted.
I like them.
Yeah. No,
Thank you.
that's me. I get paralyzed by like, you know, having to pick from a million things. And just give me the 2 swords I started with. I can level those up and make those stronger. Great, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Erdtree, there's a million things to say about it. The game's not out yet, so I don't want to describe too much of stuff. But like, I'm very happy with it. I'm excited to keep playing. It's all I want to play right now.
Yeah, this conversation has me wanting to go and like fire up Elden Ring right now.
Yeah, I really hope you guys see it to the end, because it's like, it is the most manageable From game, because it's very, not easy is not the right word, but it's like, if you hit a wall, you can go somewhere else and get stronger and come back. Where in most From games, you it's not as easy to do that. Sometimes you hit a boss and you have to beat that boss if you want to move on. And that's life. But Elden Ring gives you so much more flexibility in that regard. So I hope you guys see it to the end and then play Erdtree, because I really like it so far. It's good.
I'm gonna get all the way to the final boss and just not even attempt it, just to spite you.
I mean, I would be happy you saw as much as you did. All right, well, let's move on from Erdtree, which we'll probably talk about more next week, I imagine, because Marcus, I think, will be back in town and we'll have more to say about it, and maybe, you know, everyone will have had their hands on it at that point. But be excited. If you liked Elden Ring, get excited for Shadow of Erdtree. Let's talk about Nintendo stuff. There was a big Nintendo Direct on Tuesday, which big is not the word I would have predicted, frankly, honestly. I don't know why my expectations were so muted in retrospect. It's the summer presentation. I don't know.
But I think it's like it's felt like this whole year, I mean, year and change, really, ever since, like, aside from Mario Wonder, like, the last calendar year, the last 12 months of Nintendo has felt almost like it's in like a wind down phase for Switch. And they even said, like, coming into this, like, this is not going to talk at all about the Switch's successor. This is going to be talking about,
don't even ask, they said.
The
don't bring it up.
Yeah, I tried to ask somebody, and they shot me in the neck with a sleep dart. I woke up under a bridge in Los Angeles. It was bad.
So that's where you were. That's why you were.
Yeah, that's why.
On that one, what was it? There was a presentation, actually. I don't remember what it was, where we were all watching
disappeared.
Together, and you disappeared, and we're like, "Where's Brian? We thought you died. We thought a sleep dart hit you." But
somebody knocked on my door, and I had to answer it.
That's right.
So that is why. But
let's just, you know, start with the biggest stuff. I mean, Charles, what do you think was the biggest, most exciting announcement? And there is a right answer.
I was gonna jokingly say Ace Attorney Investigations Collection, because I'm personally very excited for that.
Well, hold on, real quick, as a quick aside on that, I was telling my wife everything. I was like, there's like a new Zelda game where you play Zelda. They announced this game looks cool. I think you'd be excited about it. And I was like 5th down the line. I was like, and they're bringing the Miles Edgeworth game that never came out in America. They're finally bringing it over here. And she's like, wait, what? Why didn't you lead with that? What is wrong with you? So you're not alone there, Charles. A
specific group of people are very excited right now.
Yeah.
It's definitely Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I think that's so exciting. I think it's one of those games, like just now Brian pitching his Tears of the Kingdom DLC, really cool, but very much feels like that vibe of like Zelda fan pitching Zelda game of like, well, they would never do that. That's a bunch of cool things that, like, it's always a cool thing no one's ever thought of before. I feel like Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is very much like you play as Zelda and it's the Link's Awakening art style. Like, it has pieces of things that I feel like a Zelda fan would come up with.
You don't have a sword.
It's just really cool. Yeah, you don't have a sword. Instead, she's got the Tri-Rod. Yeah. That's right. We took Triforce and combined it with the word rod, a famous magical root word in the Zelda games.
That's true. Yeah.
And the thing I wouldn't have expected is the whole ecosystem, which, if you've seen the trailer, you know, Zelda can, like, basically learn objects or enemies and then, like, scan them into the Tri-Rod and then just create duplicates of them out in the field. So, like, you can use tables and then climb on top of the tables, or you can make a trampoline and jump on stuff, or you can make a moblin and then fight, you know, Ganon with it or whatever. and that was really cool. I was really interested by that. Also, like, I think she might just have a jump button. Like, that's kind of a big deal in
she was
2D
definitely
Zelda
jumping
game
for sure.
And there's so much verticality like in her abilities. Like, it's specifically creating like platforming stuff. I just thought that was like a really interesting like way to separate it from like a traditional Link adventure.
Yeah.
Now, did I see? I was kind of half watching the trailer and half like divvying out assignments and proofing and everything. But did I see that they did have like the side scrolling perspective back in this as well, like Link's Awakening? Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I mean,
platforming and underwater stuff.
I think it's safe to assume that Grezzo is fully developing this, who did the Link's Awakening remaster and the Ocarina of Time and the Majora's Mask remasters for 3DS. Like, they are practiced at making Zelda games that have already been made. Again, this is me making an assumption. They did not share the developer. I don't know who is developing it. But they did Link's Awakening remake, and it's the Link's Awakening art style, so I think it's them. And then which raises the question someone asked. Let me see, where was it? Chain Whippin' on Discord said, "Hey, let's talk about the new Zelda. What's your hype level on this? How do you feel about the Link's Awakening remake art style and how it may or may not fit in with that title as a sequel or the Link's Awakening timeline?" Which is an interesting thought. I'm always a little hesitant to dive deep on like Zelda timeline stuff before actually playing the game, because people get really excited and they have a lot of predictions, and then usually Zelda games are pretty singular. Like, they really usually stand alone and have some ties to the broader lore. So in that sense, I don't think it's a Link's Awakening sequel, but
I've seen speculation on the Twitter.
Yeah.
And it seems people are picking out that this Hyrule might be related to A Link to the Past.
Which isn't surprising. Yeah, okay.
So, like, somebody picked out, like, a screenshot of, like, Zelda standing over a cliff. I can send this to you guys at some point. But, like, the layout matches the general layout of A Link to the Past's Hyrule.
Which could be also, you could write, like, even take that further to A Link Between Worlds, right? Because A Link Between Worlds is a Link to the Past sequel, and that was actually when it started. I think in our chat we were like, Link Between Worlds on Switch finally, and then we were kind of like, oh no, this is the Link's Awakening art style, and my first thought was like Oracle and Ages remake, but I was like, this doesn't look familiar, and it did not take long for us to be like, oh no, this is new, this is 100% new, whatever this is.
Yeah, so I just sent you both the comparison if you want to check that out. You can see that there is like somebody did like a comparison of like the layout of
that's
like
cool.
The A Link to the Past map and like the vista that Zelda had when she kind of stood on that cliffside.
Yeah, I mean,
I was also gonna point out the hood Link wears at the start is like the Hylian hood from the Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild. Like, it has that design from those games. So there's like, the main thing I was excited to do this podcast. I sent this image to Kyle already, where there's a shot in that trailer where Zelda's standing in front of like the Link to the Past Zoras, and then some like Ocarina of Time and on Zora. Like, the Zoras look different in the 2D and 3D games, but they're both like talking to each other in one of the shots of this trailer. And I was like, why? How? What?
I know.
What is that about?
When you sent me that, Charles, I was very impressed. I was like, whoa, that is a good catch. That is a funky thing. And Brian, I'll send you the image. But yeah, it's different ages, different designs of Zora talking to each other, which is very exciting and very weird.
Yeah.
And so I am wondering of like, we've got Link to the Past stuff. We've got connections to like Breath of the Wild. It is either some really crazy dimension hopping Zelda thing where they're taking stuff from all sorts of things, or it's just Zelda being Zelda where they just take stuff from all the different games and they don't actually explain it at all.
Yeah.
Which I kind of feel like I don't feel like they're interested in answering those questions, generally speaking, but also like I don't really need to, so I probably won't. But if you know like the ending of Link's Awakening and the context that game takes place in, it is interesting, like the concept of that even crossing over with other stuff. Like it's kind of a contained experience. So I don't see why that Link couldn't be the Link in this game necessarily.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Typically when they change Links, they do change the art style. Like look at
that's true.
Ocarina and Majora. That's the same Link. Same thing with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It's when they go, and same thing for Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass.
You're right. Yes.
So it's like when they change protagonists, it's typically a different art style. So this very well could be the Link from Link's Awakening.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly looks like it. So, but yeah, I mean, just very exciting that Zelda's a protagonist, and it's also like unique, right? It's not like they just gave Zelda a sword, and we're like, well, now the you're just playing with a different skin in a Zelda game. You know, like she has her own unique abilities that like look closer to the current trajectory of Zelda in the sense that it's like more open-ended and more creative. It's like a 2D version of Ultra Hand in a way. Like
I thought that too.
They're not similar, but like the idea is kind of similar. The emotions that will come up while you're like trying to, you know, just throw a bunch of stuff at a wall and see what happens. Seems like the game is open to that. And I'm also glad that it's called The Legend of Zelda, because like they could have called it. They could have really made it a spin-off, right? Like a very close spin-off, but like they're like, no, this is the new Zelda. This is the next Zelda game, and you are finally playing as Zelda, which is wild, which is very exciting and cool, and never would have predicted. I had no optimism of seeing any Zelda whatsoever during this stream. There's the the Majora's Mask Twilight Princess question that lingers.
Or Wind Waker Twilight Princess.
I'm sorry. Wind Waker. Legend of Gamer 102 on Discord said no questions about the Nintendo Direct, just thoughts. A lot of great announcements. I'm excited for the new Zelda and Metroid Prime 4, which we will touch on soon. I just can't for the life of me figure out why Wind Waker and Twilight Princess aren't on Switch yet, it is bizarre.
Especially since there are even more Zelda games that were like announced, like classic Zelda games. A Link to the Past 4 Swords. The Game Boy Advance remake of A Link to the Past that also has the standalone 4 Swords campaign is also coming to Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack.
Which is actually a little Kyle trivia. The first way that I beat Link to the Past was that Game Boy Advance version. I had played it before, but the first time I beat it was playing the Game Boy Advance version.
It's a pretty good version.
You guys want to know something really weird?
Yes.
It has been more time has passed since Wind Waker HD and now than time had passed between Wind Waker and Wind Waker HD.
Oh man,
so
it's been 11 years since that game came out, almost 11 years, and it was 10 years between the original and the HD version.
Oh boy.
Funny. Yeah, and so I had a buddy, shout out to my friend Aaron, was texting me, who's just always bummed that he can't play Wind Waker on his Switch, and was like, Donkey Kong Country first? Like, we're going to get Donkey Kong Country before... I mean, I love Donkey Kong Country. Nothing wrong with Donkey Kong Country. But...
By the way, I was hyped for that announcement.
Yeah,
that is one that I've been wanting for a while, because, like, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, awesome. But, like, that was the first one. Like, why wouldn't they put that one on before Tropical Freeze? I don't know. It's just very weird. And also, like, the Wii version had, like, shoehorned in motion controls. The 3DS version removed that, but it's, like, less accessible right now. So it's, like, I just want, like, the best version on Switch. And this seems like it's adding a lot of the stuff from the 3DS version as well. I'm hoping that also means we can play without motion controls. Because remember, to play the Wii version, you turned the Wii remote sideways, but I believe you also had to, like, if you wanted to roll, you had to shake the Wii remote. So it was, like, the sideways, like controller scheme, and then also motion controls, which was really, really jarring.
I will say I remember not hating them. I think you could play with the nunchuck. And I remember finishing the levels and you could like do the shake to like, you know, punch the barrel or whatever. That was all right. But yeah, I mean, I would rather ultimately, I didn't hate them as much as some motion controls in some games, but the thing was, it was like, I'd given up on it because it's like, well, they have Tropical Freeze on Switch. And if you ask Rare, they're going to be like, Retro. If you ask Retro, they're going to be like, well, yeah, the best Donkey Kong Country is on Switch. What else do you want from us, you know? And it's like, well, we want the other one. That's also really good. Yeah, any other Zelda thoughts before we move on to other stuff? 'Cause that was the big one.
I think it looks cool. I was a little. I mean, there was a brief moment where I was bummed that it wasn't A Link Between Worlds, just because that's one of my all-time favorite Zelda games. But I'm glad we're getting a new one, because that's even better.
Yeah, I'll always take new. As I love remakes. I play remakes all the time, but I'll always be more excited for the next weird new thing. Yeah, Brian. Charles kicked us off with Zelda. What do you want to talk about next?
I mean, we talked about Donkey Kong Country Returns already. I'm not a big Mario and Luigi fan, but outside of Metroid Prime 4, that seems like the other big announcement was Mario and Luigi Brothership. So I'm going to let you lead this conversation, Kyle,
sure.
because you've played the RPGs that Nintendo's put out.
Yeah.
But this one looks pretty cool.
Yeah, Matt Storm, editor of this podcast, actually sent in a question for us. I never in a million years thought we'd get a new Mario and Luigi game. I'm so stoked. My question is, what dormant Nintendo franchise would you love to see make a comeback? Which I'll let you guys think on for a bit. But the thing, I like Mario and Luigi a lot. I think I even said in my recent Paper Mario 1,000-Year Door review that I do actually prefer the Mario and Luigi trajectory of Mario RPGs.
You definitely said that, yeah.
So I'm very excited for this. But the reason that I was so extra excited and surprised, and why the Nintendo Direct for me kicked off on such a high note, was because I was certain we would never get another Mario and Luigi game, because the creators of the series, the developer Alpha Dream, went out of business in 2019. They were shut down. So I was like, well, I guess that's a wrap on Mario and Luigi. Like, we're just never going to revisit that series. So this was like a huge surprise, and it looks cool. It looks good. It looks great. I don't know who's developing it. Maybe it's like a version of Alpha Dream come back to life. I'm not sure. But yeah, I like the art style. I was watching it and I was like, how much turn-based are we getting in here? And over the course of the trailer, it did become more and more apparent. That's like, oh yeah, no, this is Mario and Luigi. This is turn-based combat. So yeah, I'm excited for that one for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to check it out. Are the other Mario and Luigi games are only on 3DS, right? Not Switch.
Yep, Game Boy Advance, DS, and 3DS.
Okay, but like the collection.
Are there any? Is one on the Switch Online? Am I making that up?
Oh, I think the original Mario and Luigi is on Switch Online, or although I might be conflating it with the Ambassador program on 3DS, which
I can find the answer to this.
Okay, but yeah, they remade they released them all on GBA, DS, and 3DS, and then they remade the first two for 3DS, and those were, I don't know, they seemed to underwhelm. I guess they weren't blockbusters in terms of sales.
So Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga on Game Boy Advance is on Switch Online if you have the expansion pack.
Cool.
Hell yeah. But yeah, I mean, the big one, which I thought you were going to jump to, Brian, was Metroid Prime 4. Like, that was another one that I was like, well, I'm excited for Metroid Prime, but we're not going to see any of that today. I just always assume we're never going to see Zelda and we're never going to see Metroid. And I live a very fulfilling life that way.
Which, by the way, looking at the reason I went to Brothership, which is a very strange word to have be the subtitle.
I like it, though. It's funny.
So here's the order in which Nintendo sent out a, like, hey, here's everything we announced in the Nintendo Direct. Goes Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, okay. Mario and Luigi Brothership, all right, I get that. That's, Mario, flagship character. Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake. Super Mario Party Jamboree, all right, still kind of tracks. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, Lego Horizons Adventure, Just Dance 2025 Edition, and then Metroid Prime 4 Beyond.
Well, I mean, they saved it for last, right?
No,
it's like
it's that, and then all the other games.
And then it goes right into Nintendo 64, Nintendo Switch Online, Hello Kitty Island really Adventure, weird. Stray. It's like, why did they bury Metroid Prime 4 like after Just Dance 2025 edition?
Yeah, it's not alphabetical.
No,
that is really
because
strange.
Funko Fusion is like 4 entries later.
Okay. But yeah, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, it's called now. I was very excited to see it. It was funny when Zelda premiered at, I don't know, the 20-minute mark. I was like, that wasn't their one last thing? Like, yeah. I was like, what are we going to have at the end here? And like, so I had high hopes for it. And Metroid Prime 4, I was like, oh my God, finally. It was really nice to see gameplay. This sounds like a knock against it, but it's really not. It's like it looks like Metroid Prime, which I don't know what I expected, but it looks like Metroid Prime, which is great.
Yeah.
I like the little tease of the enemy, which I guess the internet has pointed out looks kind of like a character from Metroid Prime Hunters, which is kind of funky, which is like that DS game. It looks great. I liked at the end they showed that that more tropical area that looked really cool and alien. I'm very happy to see it. I'm happy it's on the way. I thought I was onto something as we were watching the stream, and I even brought it up in our chat where I was like, they didn't say Switch. They didn't say coming to Switch, and you know what? They didn't have the little snap, intro before the game started. I was like, I'm thinking they might have just, Glomar response to this thing and like kind of not outright confirmed a Switch 2 game. But then I like went and looked at the trailer on the YouTube channel, and it was like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond coming to Switch in 2025.
Yeah.
And it
Also,
totally has the snap intro and everything. I was like, okay, wait, never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about.
The sole detail that is given for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond in the press release is coming to Nintendo Switch in 2025.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although I will say, I do think that game absolutely has the potential to be like a cross-platform.
Definitely.
Like Twilight Princess, Breath of the Wild style. Like we'll have it on Switch 2 for lack of a better name at the moment. First, and then like 2 weeks later you can go buy the old Switch version and it won't look quite as good. And you'll be mad that they didn't take advantage of the gamepad at all. But yeah, Metroid Prime 4, very exciting. I love Metroid Prime. I actually have never. I still want 2 to come to Switch because I've played 1 and 3, but I never beat 2. I never really played 2, so I would love to have an excuse to play 2 before 4 comes out.
I mean, if they're going to do that, they might as well put 2 and 3.
Yeah. No, 3. I would love to play 3. I would love to play 3 with Joy-Cons, with motion controls, honestly. Because it got the job done on Wii. I actually quite like Metroid Prime 3 with motion controls. I think it's like one of the better uses of it. But the Joy-Cons work even better. So like I would totally. It's one of those like Skyward Sword where I would have a couple sessions where I would try it with the motion controls, but it's like I would just like to have the option,
Yeah, it's not like one of those like Skyward Sword things. Like A.J. Newman told me it was close to impossible to do a motion control-less version of Skyward Sword, and then did it 2 years later.
Right. And he's like, actually, we figured it out. It was what everyone said we could do since the game came out.
What is the general? And this is I've never actually looked into this before. What was the like critical reception to Metroid Prime Hunters? What did people think of that? Like broadly?
Not
Middling.
bad, but like. It was kind of one of those things where I was like, yeah, this is okay. And this is maybe Brian's looking up more specifics, but I remember I didn't play it, which to me is like if there was a lot of really good reviews for it, I would have made time for it. But the fact that everyone was like, yeah, this is like a functional FPS on DS that is really more of like a multiplayer game than like a proper like single player Metroid game. It's like it just I don't know, it didn't really connect.
So it's an 85 on Metacritic, which is a very good score.
Yeah.
Higher than I'd expect.
And an 8.5 in Game Informer, so right in line with the Metacritic.
Okay.
While the single-player adventure falls just shy of the grandeur of some Metroid games, the new multiplayer game positively electrifies the experience. So
I ask because this was one of like 3 games of back when DS download play was a thing. You could just do multiplayer with whoever had the core game. So this was a thing at like I have memories of being at like a summer camp and like one kid had Metroid Prime Hunters and we would all play on DS download play. And we were all terrible and we didn't actually understand how the game worked at all. And I'd be so curious to go back to it now because I like only remember playing. And also DS download play, it's like all these other people could play, but they had like limited access to the game, so I think we could only play as like one of the characters.
Right.
But yeah, I was thinking about DS download play the other day, and like I missed that. But Metroid Prime made me think of Metroid Prime Hunters. Made me think of.
I
they should bring it back.
Would be perfectly fine. And this is probably going to be the case, but like I don't need any kind of multiplayer in Metroid Prime 4. Like they don't need. To
no,
we don't waste your time on that. It's fine.
No. Just get Metro Prime Hunters for DS, and then
Just
7 of your closest friends can play with you, but don't tell them to get the game.
Right.
Just get a DS. It'll
You
be fine.
can you
Yeah.
you can probably do that kind of. There's probably some multiplayer games on Switch, right, where you can like send. You probably have to
I
go to
don't
the
think
eShop to like
so.
download a demo or something. It's
Yeah, I
probably
think like
complicated.
there's a way that you have to like download like a basically like a shell of the software, and then that enables you to join the multiplayer sessions. I forget what games do that, but I'm pretty sure there have been a few.
Yeah.
It's more likely now that it's just like, if they want everyone to play it, they'll just make it free to play.
Yeah,
Um,
it'd probably be
Which
better.
like wasn't a thing in the DS era, but
I'm
yeah.
gonna like sort of do a rapid fire on some of these things, but yeah, I mean, if you guys have anything you're excited to talk about, like, yeah, please shout it out.
I did also want to answer Matt's question.
Oh yeah, if you
Kinda
haven't,
left
yeah,
that
to
floating.
recap, Matt's question, which I personally didn't really have a great answer for, is like, what Nintendo franchise would you like to see make a surprise comeback or any comeback, really?
Yeah, go ahead, Charles.
I mean, my go-to, I want more Kid Icarus. I feel like I've talked about this before. I just really like Kid Icarus Uprising on 3DS, and if it got ported to Switch, or we got like a sequel on Switch, or any adaptation of those characters and that rough gameplay on like a modern console, I would die for.
Yeah, I would love a port for that on Switch. I played it for like 30 minutes on 3DS, and it was like, it has the weird controls and all that stuff. But yeah, that and Star Fox are like the two that I was like, yeah, let's bring those over to Switch and have like a sort of a more contemporary version of it that we can revisit with new eyes in 2024.
It's been 10 years. Is 10 years enough to be like a dormant franchise?
I think so.
So Mario Kart. We need a new Mario Kart.
That's funny.
But no, I was going to say, like, it's bewildering to me that, like, for how genius Nintendo is at like designing amazing experiences and like just putting out like hit after hit and banger after banger, that they can't crack the Star Fox code. Like, ever since like Nintendo 64, they have not been able to figure out like a good in-house Star Fox game. And
I always like Leo Vader's joke of just Nintendo being like, "What do we do with Star Fox?"
Like Star Fox Assault had some good parts of it, and like, but that wasn't developed by Nintendo. Wasn't that Bandai Namco that did that?
I believe so. Yeah.
So like,
great first level, and then it falls off pretty.
Yeah. That was kind of my experience. I was like, oh, this is it. They finally did it. They finally made the Star Fox game. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
And then like Star Fox Zero, I wanted to love so much on Wii U, and it just womp womp.
And then Command. I don't know if you guys ever played Command
on
but
DS.
That was kind
I
of
played
cool
Command.
on DS. It was like kind of a weird approach.
But it kind of didn't you have to like use the touch screen to like steer your R-wing?
No, it's like a strategy game. Like you weren't
okay.
even really doing any action. You were like mapping out paths for your R-wing on the lower screen from a strategic perspective. It's like a weird side tangent in Star Fox that's kind of forgotten. That was actually pretty solid, but just addresses your point completely, Brian. And then they're like, we don't really know what to do with Star Fox. Like, we kind of have this cool sci-fi weird anthropomorphic animal world and spaceships, which is like would be a great anime. But like, not really sure, because I think from a design perspective, they're just like, we're just like going on a track. Like, what are we doing here? It's like,
they
we need to do
did
something different with this.
There was a story that came out, I want to say about a year and a half ago, from Retro Studios, like a former art director at Retro Studios who put out he was like, hey, I had this pitch back when I worked at Retro, and it was shot down. But like basically like you were playing as Star Fox as you were trying to rebuild the Lilat system after the war with Andros. And like you were going around taking mercenary jobs, and then like at the end of each mission you chose how much you like sent back from like how much of your like bounty you sent back to Corneria for like rebuilding efforts, and how much you saved for yourself in order to like upgrade your equipment and everything. So it was kind of like that balancing act, and like you could fly anywhere and like take on jobs that you wanted to, kind of like however you wanted to. So it was kind of more open-ended than like the on-rails shooting, but I think once you were in the missions, a lot of them were the on-rails. But like that sounded pretty cool, and Retro is a very good studio. I mean, they're doing Metroid Prime 4, they did the Donkey Kong Country Returns games. So this is actually
retro Star Fox of any kind sounds cool. There was that rumored racing game for a while that never surfaced. I bought Starlink Battle for Atlas specifically for the Star Fox stuff, and I never played it for more than an hour. But like someday I lie to myself and say that I will sit down and play through that, because apparently that's like a decent Star Fox game.
I've heard that
just
as
sort
well.
of wedged in a different franchise or a single. Is it a franchise if it's a single game? I don't know about that, but.
Since we were talking about a couple of these franchises already, I did want to shout out. I'm a big fan of when they bring like some of my favorite retro games to Nintendo Switch Online.
Yeah, that was
so
cool.
we mentioned A Link to the Past, Four Swords, Metroid Zero Mission, one of my favorite Metroid games, a remake of the original NES Metroid, but with like all the modern conveniences that were
great.
put into Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion. Those are both on the Game Boy Advance library, and then N64 added Perfect Dark and Turok Dinosaur Hunter.
Yeah,
Under
Turok
the new
is one of those games. I wonder if you guys are on the same page. Maybe not you, Charles, because you're a little bitty baby. But that was one that I would rent often, but never could get past like the second or third level. And sometimes I would put codes in to see later parts of the game, but I kind of want to like sit down and play through Turok. I bet I could as an adult now and make some good progress.
That's like a perfect replay game,
Yeah,
right?
It is.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were all cool announcements. Metroid Zero Mission is a fantastic game.
Super Mario Party Jamboree. How about that one?
How about it? I didn't go back and watch stuff. I think I was writing something when they were talking about that game. Can you give me the rundown?
Well, it seems like it's a successor to Super Mario Party, which is one of the top-selling games on Switch, but also the lesser of the two Mario Party games on Switch. Hopefully they learned some of the lessons, because that was the one that you had to use the individual Joy-Cons. You couldn't just like play with a Pro Controller, which was a little frustrating, and like some of the structural stuff was kind of hit or miss, but it sold very well. But yeah, it looks like there's like 110 mini games, online multiplayer. I guess like up to 20 people can play online together. I think it's like mini game stuff, but yeah, I mean, it seems like another Mario Party game, and like they've also, like, credit to Nintendo, they do seem to have figured out Mario Party after like, I want to say like 6 through 10 was like kind of rough. Like they were like experimenting a lot with like, oh well, what if everybody was just in the same car driving in like like everybody rolled the same number, and that just didn't work for the formula. It didn't play out properly. So it's good to see Nintendo kind of going back to that and hopefully figuring it out in like a way that doesn't rely too heavily on gimmicks, but also does what all Mario Party games do and like provide a lot of gimmicks
and make you upset for various reasons that feel unfair in the moment.
Is there something a Mario Party game could announce that would make either of you guys like actively excited, like so hyped, like over the moon for this Mario Party because they implemented?
Here's what it would be for me: if they were like, "This is Super Mario Odyssey 2," and the name of the game happens to be Mario Party. That's what would get me excited about Mario Party.
I mean, I like most Mario Party games. I grew up playing the N64 ones. I kind of fell off a little bit once GameCube arrived in terms of like the Mario Party franchise. But then I've gotten back into them through like the Wii and Wii U releases, and I think both Switch releases are pretty solid. It's just that I think Mario Party Superstars, which is like the greatest hits compilation, is better just by virtue of the fact that it's a greatest hits album. Of course, like no band's like individual album is going to typically, I mean, unless like you're like diving deep and like, you know, you really love like this one album from start to finish. It's like, it's hard to stand up to a greatest hits album.
Yeah. I actually do. I feel like I'm being really negative, but like I have a good time with Mario Party with a group of people, but it's never a destination franchise for me. In fact, Brian, when that review comes through, I'll be busy that day. Just a heads up.
Well, yeah, I'm sure you will be because it comes out in October, so everybody's going to be busy.
Genuinely will be. Yeah. Before we started, I wanted to touch on. Let me look up the name. Metal Slug Attack Reloaded, which is not Metal Slug Tactics. This is a different Metal Slug game that is also not an action game and is also kind of tactical, but isn't Metal Slug Tactics. Just to be perfectly clear, it is like the only one of the few like Summer Game Fest zone shadow drops, right, Brian? Like there weren't many like out now announcements. outside
so
of this.
This was actually, and I didn't realize this was a mobile game that came out
I didn't know that.
2016 for Android and iOS. And it's a sequel to Metal Slug Defense. This is Metal Slug Attack. And it's now
I'm embarrassed.
Switch.
I had no idea that was its history. I booted it up. I played it for about 25 minutes, and I was having a good time. Like it is very Plants vs Zombies. It is Plants vs Zombies Metal Slug, which is a high compliment.
I do like Metal Slug.
Yeah, I probably played the first 8 levels, so feedback, grain of salt, all that. But I just the sort of the motions of Plants vs Zombies, where you have a meter that's ticking up, and then you can spend it to set stuff up, and then that meter ticks up more, and then maybe you get an upgrade that makes that meter go faster. That is what this game is, and that works really well with Metal Slug's very cool visual aesthetic. So I quite like what I played. I thought it was a lot of fun. If it is a port of a mobile game, I'm always a little scared of microtransaction-y stuff, even if it's been stripped for the premium version of the game. Sometimes it lingers and it's still kind of annoying. It's well, obviously this was where I was supposed to hit a wall and be compelled to spend money on it. So hopefully it avoids those hurdles. But on a basic level, I quite like what I played. I was impressed. And speaking of playing things, Brian, you actually got to play Dragon Quest III, right? You got hands-on with that at SGF, but couldn't talk about it until now?
Yeah, so they were hold off on any kind of, mention of this game until a later day in June. They wouldn't tell us what day it was. And it was just I wonder why. So I got to sit down for about 45 minutes with the game, and, this is chronologically the first entry in the Dragon Quest, I think it's called the Eldritch trilogy, which is Dragon Quest 1, Dragon Quest 2, and Dragon Quest 3. But this one, 3 actually takes place first chronologically, and then it goes 1, 2, from what I understand. So at the tail end of the trailer, they also announced that Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remake are also coming, which they did not tell us, even though they
2025.
They kind of heavily hinted that it was coming at the presentation, but they didn't outright say it. And then during the Nintendo Direct, they did outright say it. So I got hands-on with it. It looks absolutely gorgeous, as all the HD 2D games. I think Octopath Traveler, Triangle Strategy, all those games always look fantastic. Team Asano and Art Dink are the two developers on it. But they're adding a whole bunch of quality of life improvements. They're making it so you can speed up battles, which is very welcome because those battles are a little sluggish to get through. And then you can also set up auto battling, where everybody will kind of take their turns autonomous of you, so it goes by even faster. There's also something that I don't think they touched on in the Nintendo Direct, but they are expanding on the narrative in collaboration with Yuji Horii, who is the creator of the series. So they're actually going to make it so that there's more narrative elements in this release than there was the original.
Cool. Okay.
But that said, I will say that it is absolutely a game that was created in the late 80s. It definitely feels
okay.
It definitely shows its age in the gameplay systems, but they've updated it with enough quality of life stuff that maybe that won't bother you. But if you are sensitive to that era of gameplay conventions, you might want to maybe watch some footage or something when the game comes out to see if it's for you.
What was 3's original platform?
NES.
It was NES?
Yes.
Okay. If it was Super Nintendo.
No. It came because it came out in 88.
NES is tough to go back to, even with a full remake.
It came out in 88 in Japan, and then I guess it did come out on Super Famicom in 96, but that was only in Japan.
Okay.
But it came out on NES in 92 in the US.
Because I do have affection for that 16-bit era of RPGs specifically. But once you go to 8, it's a little bit outside of my comfort zone. But I am I'm kind of enamored with this. I kind of want to give this one a shot. I've never played a Dragon Quest RPG, so I kind of want to play this one.
The visuals don't look like an NES game in this remake, just because like they've done such a great job with that HD 2D style. It's immediately appealing. I just some of the conventions that I encountered did feel fairly outdated. It's faithful while also updating it with like quality of life stuff, but it's also very faithful.
Right. Maybe to a fault. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how it actually turns out. But yeah, I've never really put any significant time into a Dragon Quest RPG either. The most I played a Dragon Quest game was Dragon Quest Builders.
Yeah, I played a lot of Builders and a lot of Heroes, the Muso. I reviewed both the Muso Dragon Quest games.
I remember you doing that, yeah.
And then, Charles, you reviewed a spin-off as well.
I viewed Dragon Quest Treasures was like my second ever review.
Yeah.
And it's a fine game.
That's
like Dragon Quest
7-ish, I think, is where you landed with that one, something like that.
It might have been high. It might have been a high 6.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm curious if I went back now, like as a more seasoned reviewer, how I'd feel about it. But,
I think we all read that review. I think it sounded like you knew what you were doing there.
I was reasonable. Yeah. I'm just. Yeah. Do you guys ever have nostalgia for games you didn't like reviewing but spent a long time reviewing?
No.
Because sometimes I think about Dragon Quest Treasures and I'm like, I didn't really like the game at all, but like, I just spent so much time with it. I was like, what an era.
Yeah.
Huh?
You're doing something, you know?
Yeah.
So I have 2 more that I want to call out.
Yeah, no, I'm not done either. Yeah, please.
The first one is Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics.
Yeah, I was actually about to like throw that at you if you didn't bring it up yourself. Yeah.
So yeah, I loved like all the crossover games in the arcades, like X-Men versus Street Fighter, Marvel versus Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Those are all included in this, as is X-Men Children of the Atom, Marvel Superheroes. That's at 6, right? And then there's The Punisher, which is like a bonus game. It's like the side-scrolling beat-em-up Punisher game. But the other ones are all fighting games. They have like online ranked casual lobby play, and then there's also rollback netcode. There's they have like the in-game museum. They have the in-game jukebox, which is cool because those games have really great music. And yeah,
it only had one song.
It just has to take you for a ride.
How did Marvel vs. Capcom 2? That's like the game I know that people really like from this. Like, if I were to play this before this collection came out, would I have had to go way back, or was there like a more modern version?
It came out on Xbox 360 and PS3, I believe, but it was delisted like
arcade. Yeah.
Yeah, it was delisted pretty shortly after it came out, and it's been delisted at least for 10 years now.
It has a weird trajectory. Cool. I played it. I borrowed my buddy's Dreamcast. I'm not a big fighting game guy, but I played a ton of Marvel vs. Capcom 2 because I borrowed my buddy's Dreamcast. And then it did come out on PlayStation 2, but it was one of those like games that was like really hard to find, and it was like really expensive. Like even if you would find it at a used game store, it would be way overpriced. And
it'd be like $70 or $80.
Yeah. And the 360 version was like a big deal because it was like hard to find, and then it got delisted. So it's like always, and then you can buy the stand-up arcade unit now, but I imagine those are probably pretty limited and expensive.
Yeah, I have the arcade 1-up cabinet like sitting like 10 feet away from me right now.
Yeah. So it's always been a tough game to find, I think, generally speaking. But it is one of those. I have a handful of fighting games that I love as a non-fan, right? There's a couple of Dead or Alive. I love Dead or Alive 4. I like Smash Brothers and stuff. But that was another one that just happened to crest for me, where I played a ton of it. So I'll totally dive into this just to revisit Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And the other one I wanted to call out was Fantasian, which it's Fantasian Neo Dimension, which I started this on Apple Arcade, by the way, and it's very cool. I wish I would have played more, but it's just hard for me to justify playing like a long RPG on my phone. So I have Apple Arcade. I to be honest, I barely use it. I play like other games on my phone, but they're not Apple Arcade games. And then like it's mostly just because it's included in like the Apple One membership that I have, which is like music and TV and workouts and everything. But I've wanted this game to come to console for the longest time. It's from the series creator of Final Fantasy, Hironobu Sakaguchi, and it also has the composer from the early Final Fantasy games, Nobuo Uematsu. So it's very cool that they're still together working on stuff. They also work together on like Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey on the Xbox 360. It's this same studio. So they are. It's gotten very good reviews. People seem to have really loved it. I liked what I played of it. There's a cool quality of life thing that they did with the Apple Arcade version as well. And by the way, the one thing that is important to note with both this and the Hello Kitty Island Adventure is they're both mobile games, but they're Apple Arcade mobile games, which means they, by design, do not have microtransactions or any kind of paid element to it once you buy the game. So that's
genuinely, I did want to shout out Hello Kitty before the end of the episode because like my family really got into that game on Apple Arcade and really genuinely liked it. So I'm happy to see that it's coming to another platform. The quick pitch is it's Animal Crossing with Hello Kitty characters.
Yeah, and I mean it was very well liked last year, and it got it won Apple Arcade's like official Game of the Year award. Like that's how much like it was well liked by critics, and
its parents gave it a blue ribbon.
Yes. Well, yeah, so both of those are coming to Switch, and Fantasian I am very hyped for. I've wanted that to come to like a real like dedicated gaming platform for a long time now.
Yeah, that's cool. The other, again, there's like, please shout out any others that stand out to you guys, but I wanted to talk to you, Charles, about Ace Attorney Investigations Collection. Have you played?
Yes, I was going to bring this
one
up.
of these games? Because the other one never came out in America, right? Did you play this?
No, so I have not. So I'm very excited too. So honestly, like dream come true, Ace Attorney, like the last 2 or 3 years for me. I saw someone, I think Hayes from, I think he writes for Inverse, was tweeting like, it's crazy how like 5 years ago it was like, we were like, man, I hope one of these games gets translated one day, and now it's like, oh, if you have a Switch, you can play every Ace Attorney game ever made as of September, because they have the original Phoenix Wright trilogy. They just put all the Apollo Justice games in a trilogy. They brought in the great Ace Attorney games over from Japan, and now with Ace Attorney Investigations Collection, these were both DS games that starred Miles Edgeworth, who's the prosecutor from the original games. So he's like a bad guy turned reluctant ally, and now like these are his games, and it's like it plays completely different from what I understand, but I've never got my hands on one of them. I don't even know if like I'd have to check, but like you can buy like the Phoenix Wright games before they got ported to like HD stuff on like consoles. They were on like the App Store, so like I played Apollo Justice on my phone because I bought it on the iOS App Store.
Wait, but these were not though, right? Or am I mistaken?
But I don't think these were.
I
think these were always just out of reach for me, so I never played them. And the first one did come to the US, but the second one didn't. Right. So that's like new for people. And one of the funniest things, I don't know if either of you guys have been seeing this online or anything. Ace Attorney Investigations 2 is the one I'm particularly excited to play, because when people rank up the series, that one is often in people, like if they've played it, it's in like their top 3 or 4 of like their favorite of all the Ace Attorney games.
With the Miles Edgeworth that did come out in America?
The one that didn't come out in America.
Well, that's just them
is
being
often
a hipster.
really, really high. The thing is, there's a very popular fan translation that people have played that they really, really like. The funny thing, though, is now that it's coming west, people are going to be devastated because they came up with these fan names.
Oh, no.
And so people have been playing this game for years and years, thinking believing these characters had these names that they had created, and now it's coming out and it's like completely different. There's one,
weird.
I think... his name was I'm gonna find it real quick. I'll find it.
Yeah, no, that's funny.
Someone vamp for 2 seconds.
I joked earlier about how excited my wife was for this. I remember her playing them on DS back in the day, and the thing that struck me about the Miles games is like it's still a visual novel and you're still doing investigation and stuff like that, but you actually do control Miles like walking around in a 2D space. So it almost looks like he's like a pixel character that you move around. So I was always kind of interested in them just because it's like, oh, I like that you actually control the character. It's not just like moving between menus, you know.
This character, he's a rival rookie prosecutor. Is named Sebastian DeBest in the fan version.
That's
so there's
pretty good.
all these things of him being like, I am DeBest and DeBest has been bested or something. I don't know. Jokes like that. His new name is Eustace Winner.
Oh no.
Okay, I mean,
new name. His official name. His real name is Eustace Winner.
Okay,
it's not the name people
DeBest
made up for him to
is
have.
hard to beat, you know. DeBest is pretty good.
And they also couldn't name him that. Because it's the fan version. Like, it would have... I think it would have been, like, a weird... Like, you know, someone else came up with this name, even if, you know, organically they were like, that would make more sense. So it is really funny that's something I've enjoyed, of seeing the version... the idealized version fans had going to this real version. And I am curious to see if people play it and they're like, nah, I like the fan version.
Oh, they almost certainly will.
I was about to say, Charles, I can tell you right now that they're going to say they liked it.
They will? Oh, that's great. I'm hyped. I gotta find this fan version before it gets wiped from the internet then.
Yeah, it's too bad you can't rename the characters like RPG style to just whatever you want. But that's cool. I'm always happy, especially like big franchises like that. We're running low on them, which is like a good thing. Of like, yeah, this popular franchise that everyone likes. The one entry that didn't come out in America is like finally coming out. Like it's crazy it's taken this long, but yeah, hell yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I mean, we covered all the highlights. I mean, that wasn't everything. It was a really good show, and it's partially because I think I went in with low expectations that made it all the better. But like, if you show me a new Metroid and a new Zelda, I'm gonna be pretty dang happy. So,
yeah,
you know,
This was like one of my favorite Nintendo Directs. Yeah. I think it's because they were like, they're not gonna have any new console news. I was like, well, what could you possibly have? And they're like, here's 3 great games coming this year. I was like, oh, okay.
Cool. I want to play great games.
Cool.
Hopefully they're great. We will see.
I hope so.
Yeah. But I think this is the last chance. If there's anything else you guys want to call out, I think that does it for the Game Informer show this week.
I mean, I'm happy that like other games from other platforms are coming to Switch, like Stray and Darkest Dungeon 2.
Well, our joke in the chat was like, well, congratulations to the worst looking version of Stray.
Yeah.
If we're going to be honest, like, you know, great. It's a game I like.
It's going to sell lots of copies.
Yeah.
Probably will.
Yeah. So that's a game that would do well on Switch. But it is like, it's even in the trailers, it's like, it's not a looker compared to the other versions.
But Darkest Dungeon 2 is probably a good fit for Switch.
Oh yeah, no, Darkest Dungeon looks great. It's a 2D game, so that totally fits. And Nintendo World Championship still looks cool. There was some new Funko Fusion stuff. There was one near the end here. What was it? Oh, the new Denpa Man looks very strange. I don't even know what to expect from that thing.
They're adding basketball to Nintendo Switch Sports, which cool.
Right, that's kind of cool.
Why not?
Farmigia. Yeah, it's like a Pokemon-inspired farming sim. You know, could be cool.
Disney Illusion Island's getting a new update.
Yeah.
It's out. Yeah.
Fairy Tail 2.
Or it's coming out the day it was announced. Anyways.
Fairy Tail is an anime that's quite good, that has had one video game adaptation that was okay. And this will probably be another video game adaptation that's okay.
Mio, Memories in Orbit looked very cool. I don't know anything about it, but it looked neat. It looked very pretty. Also, rest in peace any hope for Hollow Knight Silksong.
They canceled it. It's this summer confirmed.
Like, I don't know. Like, I assumed that it would have shown up at one of them. Like, we were like, okay, maybe it'll show up at the Summer Game Fest thing. No, it didn't. But there's always the Xbox showcase in a couple of days. Nope, not there. All right, but the Nintendo Direct for sure. And then
I mean, Brian, we even had a discussion that I brought to you as Mr. Reviews, where I was like, we should probably like plan on maybe that game shadow dropping, like to be clear, with no insider information, just being like, it feels like it could happen, so let's assume that someone will need to jump on that if it releases. We didn't hear anything,
and as a result, we're not busy at all.
Yeah, right.
Silk Song is also like, because we got like a gameplay trailer in like 2022, right? So it was a thing of that game felt real and it felt like it was right there. And then like we never heard from him again. Metroid Prime 4 was just a logo. Like I really wasn't expecting to see that because I was like not even convinced that game was real in a way that I was like, well, I know like someone who's playing Silksong in that trailer. I've never seen like a screenshot of Metroid.
Yeah.
So the fact that they had it and it was like ready to go, I was like, okay, this is like they're actually doing this one.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what Team
Which, by
Cherry's
the
up
way,
to.
if you saw the Metroid Prime 4 trailer and you never played Metroid Prime, the remastered version on Switch is fantastic. Very much recommend you go. They did a lot of like modernizing of the controls and like made the textures so much more detailed. I very much recommend. I think I gave it a 9.5. It's like tied for my highest score at Game Informer.
Oh, wow.
So like yeah, go check out the
game.
Metroid Prime remastered on Switch. If like you've never played a Metroid Prime game and 4 looked cool to you, then you'll probably want to check out remastered.
Yeah, you should play that game. It's great.
One of the greatest Metroid games, really.
Yeah. We don't need to get into blasphemous takes, but I think I would put Dread above it, personally.
But would you say top 3? Would you say top 4?
Yeah, top 3.
So like
Yeah.
Super Metroid, Dread, and then Prime?
Probably, yeah. I think I'm always going to prefer the 2D, but Prime's fantastic. I had a great time.
Like I said earlier, I'm a big fan of Zero Mission. I actually have never played
Zero
Fusion, which is wild to me, and it's on Switch Online, so I kind of want to check it
Fusion's
out.
very good. I think I like Fusion more than Zero Mission.
Okay.
This is important. We need to figure this out. No, I'm just kidding. I'll do some housekeeping here. Hey, subscriptions. We sell the printed version of the magazine. You can subscribe to it. You'll get it in your mailbox. Head to subscribe.gameinformer.com. It's still $19.91 for 10 issues over the course of a year. And you can also sign up for 2 years for $34.99. You get 20 issues. And I believe if you actually, I'm not sure. I don't want to make any promises, but the Dragon Age the Veil Guard cover is going to be hitting mailboxes soon. So please subscribe to the magazine. It helps us out. That's what that's what keeps us going strong. And we get to make a cool magazine, and we promise it looks cool. It's exciting to get a Game Informer magazine in your mailbox. You can also
I did consult the Slack. I can confirm if you get it today from Editor-in-Chief Matt Miller himself. If you subscribe today, you get Dragon Age.
Oh, great. Perfect. That's what I wasn't sure. I don't know if you would get the next issue or not, but follow Game Informer on all the social media platforms, twitch.tv/Game Informer. Marcus and I are playing The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask right now. We probably won't have an episode this week because he's out of town and I'm busy, so we're actually probably not going to have a new one this week, but we're still making our way through that game, and it's exciting. Shout out to Matt, a.k.a. DJ Stormageddon. They do the Fun and Games podcast and the Reignite podcast, which is a BioWare-focused podcast, so they'll probably be talking about Dragon Age a lot soon. And, did I mention Blue Sky, Twitter, Threads, all those places? We post everything to Threads now. So if you follow us on Threads, you can get every Game Informer post on there, which is very exciting for you. I'm jealous of you. But that's it. That wraps up this week's The Game Informer Show podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk again next week. Thank you, everybody. Bye.